What's up, everybody? Welcome into Valley Vibes. I'm Lindsay Smith, and today I am joined by Dane Moore, who covers the Minnesota Timberwolves on the Dane Moore NBA podcast. Dane, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about this series between the Suns and the Timberwolves. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's fun whenever there's a playoff series where you're kind of around the other team's media group for like 2 straight weeks, and so it'll be. We haven't done this before. We haven't done Wolves Suns before, so it'll be fun to kind of get to know each other and get to know each other's teams.
How are you kind of just feeling overall about this series from a base level?
Yeah, well, I think it's not the place that Wolves fans maybe expected to be, or the Wolves themselves expected to be. Obviously, like Vegas and such sees this as kind of a coin flip for a series. And when you've been not only the number one defense, but the number one seed in the West for a long time, probably didn't expect this, right? If you're the Wolves, to be the underdog in many ways going into this series. And I think what's interesting to me about it is I think this series tests a lot of the things that needed to be tested going into the season for the Wolves, right? Rudy Gobert and his sort of ability to adapt to a new style of play, and coming from the way he played in Utah for so long. Last year was a little rough. He's really adapted that this season to play a more aggressive style of coverage, to get out on guys like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. We've seen that, not successfully in the Phoenix games, but we've seen Rudy do that over the course of this season. And I think that's a step in the right direction, for this group. I think with Anthony Edwards, was he going to be able to make a leap? Was he going to, not have turnovers, be able to run the offense, do those sort of things? And outside of the Phoenix matchups this season, he has. Obviously, it was way too many turnovers on Sunday and throughout kind of this whole matchup this season in Wolves Suns, but he's grown a lot there too. Really, this team has so many of the questions that they had entering the season have been answered this year, but in the regular season calm, right? And now the test is doing it again in the playoffs against a team that I think really will stress Gobert, will stress the double bigs looks, will put a lot of pressure on Anthony Edwards. So it's maybe not the test they were expecting in the first round, but or this level of test in the first round, but these were always questions they had to answer both in the regular season and the playoffs. So I'm curious to see how they respond. They have responded all season, though.
Yeah. I know you tweeted Sunday after the game, after talking with Anthony Edwards, that he was still feeling pretty high confidence-wise, and that's absolutely to be expected for any players within the NBA. I imagine both of these teams are going in with high confidence levels, but what's your kind of confidence level in the Timberwolves, and what is your fan base kind of feeling about this series matchup?
Yeah, I think the fan base kind of thinks the sky is falling. The Wolves haven't advanced to even the second round of the playoffs since 2004. And given how good the regular season was, that felt like a likely outcome, right? And now you look at this matchup, losing to the Suns 3 times this season, and it doesn't feel like it's scary, I think for the fan base. I don't really view it as the Suns or the Wolves being a favorite in this. I think we need to kind of see it within the playoff context. And I kind of right now feel like it's 50-50. Maybe the Suns deserve a little bit of an advantage going in, but I think we got to see game one. If the Suns win game one and they do it in the fashion that they won the 3 other games this season, then yeah, you know what? Maybe the sky is falling. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe the Suns are a difficult matchup, but I think it's big to be at Target Center for game one. I think it's big that the Wolves had a whole week off to practice and dedicate their game plan specifically to Booker, Beal, and Durant. And Grayson Allen, I think, is an important part of this too. Let's see what it looks like in a playoff context. Let's see if they cannot turn the ball over a million times and what it looks like in that case. Because if you do take out the first quarters, the Wolves have been competitive with Phoenix throughout this. So I don't know. I'm not really ready to go one way or the other yet. I want to see what it looks like in a playoff context.
Okay, so then with that, in your opinion, what are some of the reasons why you think the Timberwolves could win this series, and maybe some of the reasons why you think they couldn't? So let's play both sides here.
Sure. I think the reason the Wolves could win this series is that I think they have answers for some of the problems that Phoenix presented. They just loaded up everything on Anthony Edwards and said, he's the thing we want to take away first. He's the thing we want to take away second. He's the thing we want to take away third. You can't give Ant that much attention if Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert are demanding attention. Mm-hmm. And I think the Cat one in particular is big because his presence on the perimeter should not let Grayson Allen be able to help on Anthony Edwards. That should be able to loosen things up. And if Cat can space the floor, be one pass away at all times from Ant, then they shouldn't be able to help on Ant as much. And if in the first quarter you can get that going and Cat can draw some attention, then you can't give all that attention to Ant. And if it's not a triple team for Anthony Edwards, I think he's going to be able to figure it out a lot better than he did before. So I think Cat, just as a spacer, as a shooter, is a huge answer there. And then Rudy Gobert should demand a lot of attention as well on the interior, rolling to the basket. He hasn't done a ton against Nurkic in this series, but he killed it in the third quarter when Nurkic was in foul trouble in the last game. Eubanks, Thad Young, they didn't really have anything for him. Gobert had 15 points in the third quarter, made 4 shots, 7 free throws, 3 of the 4 made baskets were and ones. I think he's more of a solution than you might think for the Wolves. And I then, everyone's going to come out with the narrative of Gobert getting played off in the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. But they've been playing the playoff style defensively all season. They've been having Rudy guard on the perimeter. They've been having him all year do the things that did play him, that he couldn't do or wasn't doing in Utah, that did play him off the floor at times. So I do think the Gobert part's a little overrated, but the Cat part's to be determined. He's coming back from injury. He's got to be able to show that he can actually impact this. So you can't load up on Anthony Edwards the way that Phoenix has.
Yeah, I know Ant was talking about that at practice. You tweeted that out today, which if you guys aren't following Dane, give him a follow at Dane Moore NBA on social. Just talking about how Cat will need to basically be the MVP of this series to be able to kind of combat what Phoenix has thrown at Ant over the regular season. In your opinion, maybe some of the reasons why the Timberwolves might lose this series?
Yeah. I mean, Beal, Booker, and Durant are a problem. I think it's an interesting thing how the Wolves got wiped by the Suns all 3 times they played this season, but they were kind of dominant against the Clippers. And I think like on the surface, right, you look at the Suns and you look at the Clippers as these 2 teams with 3, premier scorers. But I think the Suns guys are on another level. And I think specifically from the mid-range they are. And I mean, you look at what Durant and Booker have done from the mid-range. Beal historically has also been a high-level mid-range player. And by those guys being a weapon there, it forces Gobert to play up the floor. Mm-hmm. And again, I think Gobert can do that. He's shown that he can do that. But if he's up the floor, he's not back at the rim, right? And that's really what's made this Wolves defense what it is Gobert's ability to be there at the rim if and when, help is needed. Those guys are going to really pull Gobert out of the team's comfort zone, even if it's not necessarily Rudy's comfort zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what matchup between these 2 teams are you most interested in watching in these first 2 games?
Yeah, it's Cat KD for sure. Like how are you matching that? It was pretty clear that the Suns want Durant on Cat all the time. The way Cat is for sure going to hurt you is he's going to hurt 5s, backup 5s in particular. Like he got Eubanks one time in the last game. So I think it's interesting, how much attention, the Durant attention they're going to put on Cat. But I think the real question is, who is Cat going to guard? They put him on Grayson Allen. in this series. They opted to put Anthony Edwards on Kevin Durant. They put Jaden McDaniels on Devin Booker. They put Mike Conley on Bradley Beal. That's a tough cover too, Grayson Allen, because that's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Yeah. And I get the hesitation to put Cat on Durant because that's a problem too in its own way. But I wonder if we don't eventually get there where you just need to put Cat on Durant and, you know, just probably try to keep him in front of you. And maybe you do live with some of those mid-ranges there. But I've just been reminding people that it's not the starters versus the starters the whole game. You know, like it's going to be a problem the first 6 minutes of the game, right? When it's all three of the Suns guys are out there and the Wolves have two bigs out there, that's probably going to be a problem for them. And then at the end of games too. But the Wolves have so many guys off their bench. That's really their secret sauce is their bench and the defense they have off the bench. What Nickeil Alexander-Walker can do defensively against any of those wing guys. I mean, he's up there as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, in my opinion. Kyle Anderson is a good Durant defender. Naz Reid has played some good defense for them too. Monte Morris off the bench as well. I think once the lineups get mixed, the Wolves can guard Phoenix a little bit better. It's about surviving those first 6 minutes of the game. And, you know, 2 games ago, they fell down 15-0. The last game, the Wolves fell down 44-22. That can't happen to that degree. They needed to survive the beginning of the games. And then we got to see a close end of the game. We didn't get to see that at all in these first 3. So what is, you know, who are the Wolves going to close games with? Are they going to close with the double big look? Because right now, that doesn't look like their best group to put out there to guard Phoenix, even if it's their best overall group.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's tough it seems from my end of things anyway, in the limited amount of viewing I've watched the Timberwolves, mainly against the Suns this season, that the Suns being able to get out to such a big lead in those first few minutes of the game has really just been a wet blanket for the Timberwolves, right? Like fighting that uphill battle, it's so hard to overcome that. I think that could be an X factor in this one for me. What would an X factor be for you?
Yeah, well, I would just say so much of that is turnovers, too. They turned it over 9 times in the first 8 minutes of the game.
Which is also fascinating because the Suns have struggled in that area as well this year.
But it's all the loading up on Ant thing. Like, that's where they turned it over so much. Ant just tried to kind of bowl his way through 2-3 guys. Like, you know, that's going to be tough. Like, he could have probably turned the ball over a little bit. Cat likes to get downhill that way. Naz likes to get downhill that way. If the Suns are loaded into the paint, they're probably going to force turnovers. The Wolves need to spread them out so as to not turn the ball over at the beginning of the game, so as to not let the Suns get out in transition, so as to not fall back by 10, 15 points right away at the beginning of the game. That's line item number 1 when it tips off at 2:30 on Saturday. I think I go back to the Gobert thing, like as an X factor for the Wolves. I think a lot of people will believe that Gobert is a disadvantage for the Wolves in many ways in this. And I'm really curious to see if the Suns try to go small, you know, and they put KD at the 5. I'm not sure that's going to be the weapon they think it is, you know, and other teams have tried that this season too. Again, historically that's worked against Gobert, but this team has had success against that this season. They've been committed to being able to staying big against small ball for 2 years now since Gobert has been there. So in ways, I think Gobert could be an X factor just in the sense that I think everyone thinks he's going to suck in this series. That makes sense? Like, yeah. I think that delta is going to be big.
I feel bad for him in that sense. Like, that's got to be a tough rumor to kind of, or quality, I guess, to kind of overcome, but it's also fuel to the fire, right? He has something he wants to play for to prove everybody wrong. So I think this is going to be a fun series. I obviously have the Suns with the edge in this one, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like a lot of Suns fans think it might be. Too early for predictions for you, or you want to put one out there?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done an official one yet. I honestly think like where the line is around 50-50 makes sense. I think we should anticipate this going 6 or 7 games. So I guess that's to say, like, I don't think the Suns are going to continue rolling the way they have through this. I don't know. Like, so normally you would say if the Suns are like 54% chance to win, you would pick Suns in 7, right? Like if they're the slight favorite, but that's at home. So or at home for the Wolves, right? Game 7 would be. So I don't know. I mean, if you want to pick Suns, I guess Suns in 6. I guess just as taking the Wolves side for now, I'll say Wolves in 7.
Okay, perfect. You can roll with Wolves in 7. I'll roll with Suns in 6 to be kind here. So that we're like right there even. We'll keep it just like the odds are right now on the sports books. Dane, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And again, everybody be sure to give him a follow on social at Dane Moore NBA to keep up with all things Timberwolves. You've had a lot of really great quotes from the players so far today that you've put out. So it's a great resource to keep up with what's going on in Minnesota throughout this series.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Looking forward to getting to know this team better and to, seeing where this goes. It's the playoffs, man. This is always fun. Excited to talk to you guys some more.
Exactly. Thank you again.